Hello and welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast.
Hello!
Episode 32.
Yeah, 32.
I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say it. I'm Euan.
I'm Chris.
And I'm neither of those.
Okay. And we've got a delightful show for you today with some...
Actually, can I stop you there? Pawel, stop doing that. Stop introducing yourself as neither of those.
But why?
I'm giving you a lecture. Alright, live on the show.
But why? This is true.
It may well be true, but that's not what the listeners are looking for.
I know, but you know.
They want
But
details.
Now that I've made a big deal about
listening.
I've made a big deal about it probably is what the listeners are looking for.
Yeah.
Right? That's
sort of catchphase, really.
That's it.
We should throw out more catchphrases.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes, I might just be called Pawel as well, but it's just we know that.
What's your catchphrase, Euan?
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs, alright. Mine's is there goes the bucket. That's I think that's a good one.
Well, welcome to our podcast. It usually goes this way.
Yes, welcome to the podcast. This is episode 32 of the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast.
Sometimes we talk about games, but mostly we talk about catchphrases.
Yes, and well, quite often we just talk nonsense, but we are mainly a gaming podcast, so we're here to talk to you about some games, and that goes across a broad spectrum. That's video games and board games and RPGs, and that's it.
These days.
So we've got a few video games to talk about. Then we'll move on to talk about some tabletop games, and Pawel's going to talk about an RPG of which he's very fond of, possibly too.
Yes, we'll see if that's going to materialize.
Yeah,
I've been promised that many times. That's actually the only reason I'm here.
You're here with you're prepared. You've got PDFs.
yeah, you've brought PDFs with you. That's interesting. Physical copies of PDFs.
You somehow made a PDF.
Somehow.
It's actually terrifying if you.
It's like a portal into another dimension.
It's really worrisome.
How the hell would you guys get?
It's invisible on the flat side.
They just print
But you're
out
very
a
aware that it's
PDF as a bloody digital printout. I might have as well
So
printed out.
how have you done it then?
Okay, yes. This is an actual HTML printout, man.
Oh, whoa, you've gone back in time now.
Okay. Oh well. You can reach through it into the code.
Sorry, yes. I was on a website and I had print button. PDFs were not involved. Can we move on?
Again, more details for the listeners, and that's what they want to hear.
I think
Yes.
I think this was required, yes.
So when you hit that print button, how many black holes did you create?
I will check.
Thanks, man. It's probably for the good of the world that you check that out. Right, so let's stop this nonsense, and we'll move on to talking about some video games.
Sure.
Some of them nonsensical.
Some of them are crazy. I've had a great time playing the first one I've got to talk about, Ex Anima,
Yes, let's talk about Ex Anima.
which is by Bare Metal. Now, when I first got Ex Anima, it was in extremely early access. It's still in early access at the moment, but they have made some changes to it.
It's still quite extreme.
It's quite extreme. It's a mad game. Now, it's basically a dungeon crawler, which is, it's not like random or anything. It's got pre-made levels, sorry.
Right.
But the focus in this game is the physics of actual fighting. So when it comes to swinging your weapon around, you do have to control all this sort of... It's kind of manual. It's weird to describe how you control it in this, because it's almost like you go into... You press tab to go into combat mode, because this is on PC.
Right.
And you can move around like from side to side while you're in combat mode. You can use your WASD keys to sort of move your character around, but you're clicking the mouse to swing your weapon. Right. So
and it's not only that, you actually have to click it and sort of move your mouse in order to swing it in a proper direction and stuff like this.
So yeah, you're controlling your character by moving them sort of footsteps, sort of side to side and stuff, but using your mouse to swing the weapon around. And it's isometric. This isn't first person.
Okay.
So it's isometric view. And it just has some hilarious results sometimes. Just like
you're swinging this
just
weapon.
Like and quite a lot of the time it just doesn't work. It doesn't work the way you want it to. But you feel like there's a knack to this somewhere. Like you feel like if you just got the hang of this, you'd be really good at this game. But
I mean, we were assured by actual loyal fans of this game that once you practice enough and start getting the hang of it, you will enjoy it.
Yeah,
it sounds like that's the idea.
So. It's a steep learning curve, and I suppose that there is somewhere up there you can actually get to enjoy the mechanics of sword fighting in this game.
Yeah.
Have we enjoyed it so far, though?
Well, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, the only reason I went back to playing it was because you asked me to, because you were thinking about buying it, and
I may have actually bought
and
it
you did
during
actually
your
buy
Twitch
it.
session.
Yeah, so I streamed it for you.
You got bored of him falling over a table.
And yeah, we did have some guy who seemed to know what he was doing come into the Twitch chat and start telling me how to play the game, which was kind of helpful. But yeah, it was quite fun because having gone back to it, having not played it for a year, and they've got like character classes in it and stuff now. So I went the knight, which is apparently easy mode.
I think it's less classes and more just the amount
more
of experience
just
you have and kits.
More just what you start with, I think, is really that's all it is. But yeah, so the knight started off with heavy armor because when I first played it, you didn't have the choice of that. You just got a sort of peasant in clothes. And then you didn't even have a weapon. You had to go and find a stick to go and wave in people's faces.
That's how I decided to attempt to play.
Oh, is that how you played it?
Well, that's because I play Dark Souls as deprived always.
Oh, yeah.
And this game,
Challenge
and the reason when I was watching you play it on Twitch, I actually had a strong Dark Souls vibe, and given that you're going through dark whatever corridors and everything seems fairly depressing, and all your enemies are zombies. And you're just all alone, not exactly sure what you're doing. This is pretty much what happens in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd buy it and try it, and you know what? It's fun, but it's really difficult.
It is difficult.
It took me 2 sittings to sort of know what I'm doing, but I cannot properly, easily, comfortably defeat the first enemy. I have to sweat hard in order to defeat the first enemy.
It does take some getting used to.
Right.
I found that like the enemies are just like they're quite amusing in it. It's because some of them like the enemies don't a lot of the enemies don't automatically react to you. Like they'll just stand and look at you to see what you're doing. Like they have their own little AI sort of thing. So if you walk up to them brandishing your weapon, then they're going to attack you. But you can just walk up to some of them and look at them, and they just won't do anything. They'll just look back. Which I found quite hilarious when I decided to abuse the physics in this game. Because there's ragdoll physics, basically. So
let me just I'm just going to quickly mention that Chris usually has to try real hard to abuse games, and he succeeds most of the time. But in this game, he didn't have to look for anything. The game presented it to him on the silver platter.
On a silver platter.
On a table in this particular case.
I found a table that if I ran at it at high speed, I just collapsed over the top of it. Well, there was an enemy standing on the other side of the room just looking at me. And I just did it over and over again until I decided to put a box in front of the table and then ran at that, and I basically just almost did a forward flip at this enemy's feet, which it provided a lot of hilarity for me. Like
you might end up influencing the direction of the final sort of gameplay. They might put lots of table flipping stuff in there. Got to try and get over this table, lads.
But
see how you can do it.
I don't know if you remember, Pawel, the enemies, like, they suffer from this as well. So I don't know if you remember that there was an enemy ran at me from the other side of a corridor and then just tripped over and collapsed at my feet.
I think this was like first or second enemy in the dungeon, and my first thought was that this is an actual proper level 1 mob you should be getting in any game. Untrained, not ready, low morale, runs away from you, trips, falls down. This is what it should be. So well done.
And then you run up and bash his knees in.
Pretty much, yes.
Well, that's
all you can hit.
Well, that seemed to be what I was mostly hitting. Like, it just seemed to be mostly knee shots for me. It was just like, yeah, right in the knee.
Huh?
I mean, there is something satisfying about when you get a really clean hit in this game.
Right.
Like, if you manage to swing your weapon and smash somebody in the face with it, Like, and this sounds pretty brutal, but there is something really satisfying about that. Just being like, oh yeah, that was the hit. That was the one. Like, that's what I need to do. And then your next hit hits a door.
Here's a question though. Do you know for sure that you've actually influenced the success of this particular hit? Did you feel like you've done everything right and this hit should have hit and hit? Because most of my successful hits are really just luck.
Well, there is a lot of luck involved, because there are times when, especially when you feel like you're backed into a corner, you just start swinging wildly. Yeah. But I do aim for, like, because my tactic in it is to kind of back off a bit. Generally, if I've got a bit of space, I'll back off a bit, and then just as I'm moving forward, swing the weapon.
Right.
And a big sort of sweep, just looking for almost like that boxer's hook. You know, you just look for the opening and you just like you just swing at them, and that's what you're going for. When that connects, it's good.
Okay.
Like, and you can knock the enemies down by doing stuff like that as well, then smash their kneecaps in, as this previously discussed.
So apart from the dungeon crawling mode, there is an arena mode in this game, which is really just
I haven't tried that.
A training session. You're in a well-lit room, so you don't need your torch. There's plenty of space to play around. There's just one enemy, and that's pretty much just swinging your weapons. And every time you defeat your enemy, you get to sort of start another fight with a harder enemy, or armed with something more dangerous and armored, and there's shields and stuff. And if you spend a good deal of time practicing that, you start thinking that you're actually ready, which is what I've done, killing, 5 or 6 properly armored and armed enemies in arena. I thought, yeah, I got this. Got into the corridors, and that was pretty much me. The first enemy just bashed me through, simply because those corridors are fairly narrow, and you have to control the camera with your middle mouse button. And there's so many different things to keep an eye on, and then you just trip on some sort of piece of debris, and that's that.
There's always that in this game. There is always that, oh, right, I'm running towards an enemy, he's not seen me yet. Oh god, there's a box. Like, I'm on the ground.
I think, this is another bit that made me think Dark Souls, because Dark Souls is supposed to be unforgiving, very difficult, but it's difficult in a completely different way. It just kills you straight away if you make a mistake, but at least you know what you're doing. Now, in this game, I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing yet. I'm just swinging wildly and blindly. But maybe later.
You'll get the hang of it, man. Have you been involved in any hugging contests with your enemies yet?
Well, that's my problem. No matter what weapon I start with a piece of debris, just a wooden whatever plank, and as soon as I get to my first enemy, I just hug him, and then I back away from him. He swings at me, I dodge, I hug him, and it's pretty much just an exchange of missed swings and successful hugs.
I keep trying to clothesline people. Just run in with your arms stuck out and see if you can knock them over. It's not happened yet, but I'm confident that this could work.
Well, they just generally go for that then. If you're sort of getting close to like an enemy, just try and hug them, or
well, if you're
unarmed, or is it
like they teach you when you go to, like, when we did jiu-jitsu, for example, it's like if you get close to someone, it's harder for them to hit you,
right?
Especially if they've got a weapon. It just feels almost like that. It's just like, get in as close as possible, and they can't do any damage to you because you're hugging them.
You can't do damage to them.
You're just
it's a stalemate.
Yeah, you just stand there and he's a hug.
I think our consensus is that we crap at this game. But enjoying it.
Yeah, I think I was doing quite well.
Yeah, because you were wearing full armour.
Did you see the first character I made? I made a really fat monk.
It was a fat monk, yes. It was still much more successful than mine.
But you probably had armour as well.
Plenty of it. Fat armour. I'm sure we'll return to that game at some point when we're feeling like hugging someone dead. And maybe get better at it at some point. I think
I'm definitely up for streaming some more of it. Because I had a lot of fun playing that on Twitch. It was really, really quite fun. But yeah, that's Exanima by Bare Metal Entertainment. Now the really early version of it that I played, that came out in 2015, so it's still in development. The guy that was in the Twitch chat that was giving me all the advice had said that this game was mostly coded by one man.
Yeah.
Like, just one
Which
guy
is very
just did
impressive
most of
given
it
the amount
himself.
of stuff
And
in it, yeah.
considering what's in it, that's quite impressive.
Fair enough.
And it's quite atmospheric, and, you know, they've got the lighting all spot on in this game as far as I'm concerned. So you do have to spend a lot of time just using a torch. But yeah, it's good fun. Isometric dungeon crawling RPG style.
Hard as
Weapon
hell,
swinging,
but yeah,
falling
but
over. all them good things. Right, we're going to move on to something we've talked about before, but Pawel, you had a go at this. Again, we started playing it on stream, but then we both had to go, so halfway through the game, and you were totally confused. And this is the board game stroke video game Armel.
I was confused, I admit, but I'm usually confused to begin with, so that's fine.
That's your default state.
It's much more, I'm going to say, board game-ish than I expected it to be. And I think part of my confusion came from the fact that I kept looking at other characters doing things, wondering where the hell is mine and what's happening, and I'm waiting for my turn. That took me a while to actually realise this. Oh, it's my turn now, I should do stuff.
Yeah, this is basically, it's just a board game, but you play it on your computer, and it's got absolutely gorgeous artwork, and it's basically just played on a big hexagon-shaped board, and there's a little story thing going on, so there's different ways of winning the game. It's all anthropomorphic, sort of animal type characters. And
really well drawn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really, really nice art. And there's a king, there's a lion that's the king, who is dying, and he's also becoming corrupted by the rot, which is this disease.
I remember talking about it. Sounded quite grim.
Yeah, it is a wee bit grim. You do feel kind of sorry for this lion, but at the same time, he's kind of going insane and making your life difficult.
Right.
So things get difficult as the game goes on, and basically, you can win the game a number of different ways. You can kill the king, you can cure him of his rot, I think, and there's also prestige. So for doing certain things, you'll get prestige, and if the time limit runs out, which is basically when the king dies, the person with the most prestige wins the game. And you get prestige just by like doing quests and picking up various objects and stuff like that. Now, essentially in the game, when it's your turn, you've got 3 actions. You can move across the board. You've got quests. You can pick a quest to do at the start of the game. Once you do that quest, you'll get prestige for it, and you can go on to do other things. But when it's your turn, you're basically like, you move across the board. You can equip cards. So there's a lot of cards in this game. 3 different types. There's equipment and trickery and magic. And you can equip equipment to your character. You know, you've got 3 slots that you can equip. And all these things will give you various bonuses and stuff, and generally they're bonuses that you get in combat for equipment. Magic will let you do various things. It might let you hurt somebody that's somewhere else that's near you or something, or it might heal you or do other things. Trickery does bastardly things. You can lay traps on parts of the board. You can play trickery cards on other people to maybe steal their gold and stuff like that. There's a few things going on. And the battle system is basically a dice thing. So if you've got various bits of equipment, you might get automatic hits or automatic defense things or whatever. And you just roll some dice and, you know, just compare what you've rolled basically and see who wins, and you do damage to each other. And all the characters are different. They've all got hit points. They've all got their own little skills that they can use.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you play through this board game, and it's quite fun. It's quite chilled out, and it's laid back and relaxed, and you know, you just sit there and you can play it multiplayer. You can play it against AI. You can play with a mixture, as me and Pawel did. And yeah, I mean, I backed it on the Kickstarter, so I got a couple of the Kickstarter exclusive dice skins and stuff like that, nice. Various wee nice things. And I keep popping back into it every sort of few months and playing it again, and it's quite fun.
I'm gonna say it's good fun, but I was really shocked for some reason. I wasn't sure what to expect at first, and I think most of my expectations were led by the gorgeous art in the game, the graphics. And you know, when you look at anthropomorphic animals, all of them seeming to be good guys, if you know what I mean. They're gonna either look sort of like brave, noble wolves, or cute bunnies, or these druidic type bears. Even when you get the roguelike rats, they really cute and really well drawn. So for some reason, when I started playing it, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be fun. And suddenly murder. There was blood everywhere. In fact, I was just watching what's going on, and everybody kept backstabbing each other, just chopping each other to death. All these characters dying left and right, respawning just to get killed for another round. And in fact, I think there was a point during our multiplayer when I was just sitting there, a little bit shell-shocked. What? All these cute animals are just murdering themselves.
Sort of animals of Farthingwood style.
Yeah, but having said that, Pawel, you kicked off a lot of that murder by just instantly attacking the King's Guard on your first go, which was a foolish thing to do.
No, I fully agree, because I wasn't prepared, but I wasn't sure where I'm clicking at to begin with, and I figured I'm a wee rat, so I should probably backstab someone, because... all these characters have actually a lot of personality when you think about it.
Yeah, they do.
And the king is evil. Might as well exploit it if I'm a rat.
I have to say, the character that you went, McCreary.
Yeah.
He's the one character that I really dislike.
Yeah.
I find him to be a complete pain in the arse to play against. Because I think he gets some bonus trickery thing, so he's just constantly doing annoying things to other people. And I really dislike it. I went the game we played, I went one of my favourite characters, who's the little rabbit that's wearing weird...
The one with all the equipment.
Yeah, and he gets like bonuses for his equipment and stuff like that. But yeah, like you say, you've got the wolves and stuff who... and basically there's like 4 different clans in this game. And each clan's got its own little characters and stuff. And the clans, like, if you go a certain clan, you'll get some sort of bonus. You go a certain character in that clan, you'll get another bonus as well. And you unlock stuff as well as you're playing through this. I don't know if you knew this, Pawel, but...
Yeah, I've seen that when I was attempting to play after tutorial a solo campaign.
Yeah.
When you're selecting a character, there is various things that obviously are unlocked. I mean, locked for me, but you can unlock various rings, various other starting bonuses and things.
That's
like
right.
this.
Yeah. And if you win like certain numbers of games using the Wolf Clan, for example, then you'll unlock something and all these kind of things. So it kind of encourages you to play as different characters, and I have played as a few of them, but that rabbit is just one of my favourites. I find him to be. He's a good all-rounder, I think. And his ability of, like... Because when you equip things in this, you have to spend gold. But when you fill up your equipment slots, if you put a new equipment card in, you have to... You lose the card that you had equipped before. But what this little rabbit guy does is he doesn't lose the card. He gets it back in his hand, and it costs him 0 if he wants to equip it again. So basically, he can just switch out all his equipment constantly, depending on what's going on. And I just... really like that ability.
So what's his
really
name,
nice
this rabbit?
I can't remember, actually.
Barnaby,
well done. That's it, Barnaby. Yes. Cool. But yeah, I mean...
How the hell do I remember that?
You're into characters, man.
Yeah, I sort of am.
You really like characters. But yeah, I mean, it's a game that I just, like I say, I just keep dipping back into every so often, and I always enjoy it when I play it. And... one of my little complaints is that you do spend a lot of time. There's a lot of dead time in this game.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna mention that if you play solo, and you've got 3 AI players playing with you, as soon as your turn is done, that's you sitting around and just waiting.
So the AI takes quite a long time to do.
Well, the AI. I think they did add in some way speeding it up slightly, but I mean, just because of the nature of the game, you can't really not pay attention to what the AI are doing, for example, because they might be chucking like perils down that'll stop you from doing stuff, or they might attack you, or they might take over the towns that are there that might belong to you or something. So you kind of want to pay attention.
Thing where you're just like, right,
rattle
through that, and then I'll
make a cup of
deal
tea
with it.
But yeah, I mean, I absolutely love the game. It's really, really good, and it's the artwork that sells the whole thing.
It's absolutely charming, and the game is nicely complex. Plenty of ways to win it. Plenty of ways to, I suppose, play it with different characters. So it's what you would expect from a full size proper board game. So yeah.
We should get a 3-player on the go.
I think so as well.
Let's live stream that. Look for that soon.
Aye. Totally. I'm gonna go Philip.
Philip the what?
Clown.
Philip the Eagle.
Yeah, eel.
All right. That
will work.
That is not a character in Armel.
Well, maybe it should be. Maybe we should restart the Kickstarter. Get it in there.
There is demand for Philip.
The eel plan. Let's.
Right.
Yeah, so that's Armello by League of Geeks, who I believe are just an independent developer as well. And they've done really well with this game. It's really,
nice.
really
I mean, I've seen some of the gameplay, and certainly, like say, the artwork's pretty impressive. So even that's just a lot of time's gone into.
What's really cool though is that the cards that are in the game, they sit at the side of the screen. The cards that you've got in your hand, and they're all animated.
Yeah.
So they've got little animations just playing all the time at the side of the screen, which is quite. It's a nice wee touch. I really like it.
Oh yeah, in terms of graphics and animation, this is your AAA, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to something else now. That's we finally completed Shenmue.
Yeah.
It took us a year.
We wanted to get around to doing that and talking about it, so yeah.
Every episode deserves some Shenmue in it.
Yeah, we can always spike a little Shenmue in there. Just it's a strange little game, Shenmue. I mean, it kind of just ends. It feels like it ends quite abruptly.
Aye.
It goes into kind of that last.
There's a bit of an anticlimax in it, yeah.
This kind of just really. Something sort of happens in the game where it kind of just railroads you through certain points. I mean, you do maybe have to go to certain places, mostly just around the docks, and it's just almost a case of just going to work, and then things just randomly start happening, and it kind of escalates to the point where you're pretty much into endgame territory.
I'm going to just spoil it a bit and say that if you thought that the ending in Shenmue 1 was weird and possibly strangely paced, then the ending in Shenmue 2 will bring similar.
I'll vouch for that, because I have played through the whole of Shenmue 2 before, and the last disc of Shenmue 2 just is I just don't know what's going on with that.
Should be another game, and it's in fact. Suzuki had I don't know how many episodes prepared of the whole story, or acts, or whatever you call it. And the first game is sort of like the first act.
Yeah.
And then the second game, you get I don't know how many acts pushed together.
Yeah, it does seem like from what Chris was talking about, there's multiple locations. I mean, even in the first, we've just started playing it, and you're around the harbour and everything like that. I mean, that's a massive area. It's bigger than Dobuita in the original game, and probably the other stuff. And there's not, if you think about it, you're already just so much more going on.
Yeah.
But it's quite cool that in terms of like a storytelling point of view as well, because I mean, Shenmue, like the first Shenmue, it's what I remember what I was saying about it being like Japan Simulator, but the fact that like that town that you're in is just so, it is just like, it's not glammed up. It's like, oh, this is all. It's just like such a mundane little place.
Yeah,
it's little shops and everything like that, and it is kind of what like a little Japanese village like that would be, or sort of like town with sort of industrial area and everything like that.
Shenmue's influenced many people to pick up interest in Japan as such. I've probably chosen my my whatever East Asian studies because of Shenmue.
All right, fair enough. I mean, it's definitely it has a bit of realism to it with that. And then suddenly, Shenmue 2, it's like you're following this guy on this journey, and it's suddenly opened up into all these new worlds. It's interesting. I was kind of quite impressed by the start of Shenmue 2.
But before we've started talking about Shenmue 2, even though we say we're talking about Shenmue, so let's go back to Shenmue then. What are your overall feelings on Shenmue as a story and as a game?
Yeah, I liked it, and it was interesting. Like I say, how sort of it did feel kind of small stakes. The story of the first one, even though you're still kind of following that same journey, you're just taking the first steps, really. The fact that you're kind of just a teenager who's decided he's going to investigate a murder, and even though it's his father.
Not just investigate a murder, investigate his dad's murder.
But
at the hands of a very mysterious martial artist.
And the way he goes about it, and it's kind of just him, he's never really done anything like that before, so you go through these crazy steps of just going around the place, kind of picking up random scraps of detail and building up more and more to kind of get where you're trying to go. It's an interesting game. I don't think I've played anything that's sort of paced and with the way the story's told in that. I mean, I know they did sort of break it up, and they wanted to have the 3 episodes essentially of, well, hopefully Shenmue 3 will
Well,
pop up eventually.
it's coming, man. It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Who knows how long it will take, but it is now funded.
Well, it's been funded for quite a while. That's got to be more than a year now, isn't it?
I'm sure it's gonna take a good couple more years. Now, I've been trying for the past couple minutes, but I just cannot remember. What was the name of the wee golem creature?
Oh, Chai.
Chai.
I remember this for some
Have
reason.
you
'cause
managed to defeat him?
Yeah, he is pretty tough.
He
Like,
is
that's-
pretty
yeah.
tough. I've managed finally to beat the feces out of him, but it took me a while.
Yeah.
But,
Well, we sat for quite a while just passing it back and forth, like, not getting anywhere with it. I mean, it's like even you do learn these sort of moves beforehand that he does as well, that you can kind of dodge and then counter attack.
yeah.
So you are kind of meant to use those.
I think this might also possibly be the only game I've played where you get to have proper hand-to-hand combat with 100 Yakuza people, because there was something like this. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah, down in the
where they
docks.
just kept running
Yeah.
at you all.
Oh yeah,
stuff
that
in the
was
docks
really
is great.
fun.
That was fun.
Actually, yeah.
I did really enjoy the fighting, like, because it's so weird that you never do it for massive chunks of the game, and then suddenly you're.
Man,
I find it surprising that you enjoyed the fighting, Euan, because all you did was button mash.
It was frantic, I'll tell you that. But that's the thing. I was kind of picking up things as I went. Right, okay, right. This works now. But yeah, that particular section was fun. Like, actually,
Yeah.
it was really satisfying just mowing through all those folk.
You guys remember the wee park in the middle of the Buita where you would train your, not in the dojo, because you
Yeah.
could train in
Yeah.
the dojo, but you could also train in the wee park for kiddies?
Yeah, but I found
man,
it wasn't
I've
really.
spent so much time there just practicing kicks and the like.
But the thing I found, I don't know, it just didn't quite. It would have been good if they'd had something where you could actually practice properly.
against somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I know you do get to spar with.
Well, in Shenmue 2, there is kind of that, because you can just have sparring matches with people
Yeah.
for money, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So they have added a lot of these things in. I feel like Shenmue, I think if you were to play that game now, okay, having no knowledge of Shenmue,
yeah.
would you feel like you wanted to play Shenmue 2? Would you feel like you really needed to play Shenmue 2? Because I feel like that, like, maybe back in the day when Shenmue first came out, it was kind of breaking the ground and stuff like that, and that would leave people wanting more. But I'm wondering if, because Shenmue is such a weird, like you say, weirdly paced game,
Aye,
and
it's a very odd game.
and it kind of ends on a weird note.
Well, you basically fight some henchman. He's like the final boss of the game. Is this random henchman? That's like, it's you off to Hong Kong. Nice one.
But I'm asking, would you feel that you would want to move on to Shenmue 2 if you knew nothing else about it?
Because I always enjoy games that have got a weird sort of sensibility to them. Like, there's a lot of like obscure games that have played randomly. And yeah, I think I probably would if I'd gone through, because everything you have to sort of deal with throughout the game is there. So I think if you've gotten to that point where you've completed it, you're definitely going to want to see what's happening next. And certainly if you started playing Shenmue 2, you would be like really impressed. And that's the way that it does suddenly just open out.
Aye, and that's the thing that I liked about Shenmue 2, and it's probably the reason why I played through the whole of Shenmue 2 and not the first Shenmue. Which just kind of like, once you start playing Shenmue 2, you're just like, there's quite a lot going on here, and I'm interested. Like, this got me hooked straight away. In fact, Pawel, pick one. If you could only play one of them, Shenmue or Shenmue 2, you're the expert here.
I would go for one.
You would go for one?
I would go for Shenmue 1.
I find that quite surprising, but okay.
No. I'm not saying that Shenmue 2 is inferior in any way. It's sentiment, because I started from it. It was
right,
and there hasn't been since, in my opinion, a game that's managed to emulate so much stuff together. Games usually have their own genre and their own sort of goals. They either give you ability to shoot stormtroopers in the face, or, I don't know, stealth through roofs in Assassin's Creed. This game is an actual Japan simulator or Hong Kong simulator, and there's so much stuff you can do in that. But for me, it started in Japan, so the second one was, I felt slightly disconnected simply because the Buita as such was, with its weather patterns and everything, was a character of its own in Shenmue. And once you get to Hong Kong, Rio is a stranger there. You get to meet all these new characters, which are immediately thrown at you, and it took me a while to build some sort of connection with them. Eventually, once you find yourself there, once you have your a job there, whether it's venting books from the monk's library and dropping them all the time and things like this, eventually, absolutely, you find your connection. But it took me a while.
But you don't feel that that's the idea of Shenmue 2, though?
Yeah.
You're supposed to feel disconnected from it
because
at the
the
beginning.
whole story is about Ryo not trying to bloody kill Lan Di, because that's never going to happen, or not for many years still, but about him growing up and going through these stages. So it fits the story, definitely.
Yeah. But in fact, everybody that Ryo meets tells him not to go after Lan Di.
Yeah.
But it's like, revenge, that's never going to work. You know? That's not what martial artists do. And he just doesn't learn, does he?
You know what? I'm actually curious to see what the moral of the story will be when eventually we get Shenmue 3.
When eventually we get it.
I think that is like one of the interesting things about it, and it definitely has it in Shenmue 1, the idea that you're playing through a week this little life or whatever, but there is like these richer sort of themes going on, and then it keeps cutting to that little Chinese girl or whatever that's waiting for him to appear, or he sometimes dreams about her, and it's just like that's something that really is completely disconnected from what's going on. But it's like I kind of find that quite cool in a way that it's sort of,
because there's this mystical aspect to it which Shenmue 1 doesn't really have, apart from the mirrors being there. But mirrors are just whatever old artifacts, nothing mystical. So the first game is absolutely sort of, let's say, believable.
yes.
And then suddenly in the second game, there is a little bit of an Excalibur thing at the end. Yeah.
But I feel the world in Shenmue 2 is much. I found the world in Shenmue 1, because you're saying that you like Dobuita and stuff like that. You just kind of like and I can see that you like just wandering about the streets and you see the same people and everything. It's the same faces. But in Shenmue 2, I feel like there's more to do in the world, if you see what I mean. In fact, there's a lot more fun to be had in Shenmue 2.
Yeah.
Whether it's just like, I mean, they've got the arcades and stuff, but you can do the little what are they? When
so
you drop the balls into the top of the pin, the big boards with the pins in them, stuff like that, and the ball just drops down and goes into the different slots and things, and you win prizes.
And you can, as a street sort of, I'm not sure how you call it, street peddler or whatever, you get to, there's so many different jobs you can take.
Yes.
Obviously, Shenmue 2 is a sequel, so it's going to improve on gameplay in many ways. And it did. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed Shenmue 2. Apart from the parts where I was just sort of not sure what's happening is once you leave Hong Kong and get to the last act of Shenmue 2, and suddenly it's all green around you and just you walking through planks and reach an Excalibur, and that's pretty much that.
Don't spoil it.
It does get a bit weird at the end, but we're just going to have to assume that Shenmue 3 is going to solve that, because they were going to make Shenmue 3 back in the day, but they wouldn't get the funding for it.
Yeah.
So there has been a massive question mark there for, 15 years?
Yeah.
That does seem like complaint, I don't know, just sort of observation seems to be kind of like quite common about Shenmue 2, so I'm wondering whether Shenmue 3 will go back to probably more of the original formula.
Well, I mean, there's been 15 years though, Euan, so I get the feeling that Shenmue 3 is not going to be what people expect it to be.
It might be
because they're going to be using modern storytelling and stuff, I suppose, and mechanics and all that kind of thing.
I suppose the only comparable thing will be this third season of Twin Peaks.
Fair enough.
As long as it's not like what do you call it? What is that one? We talked about it before. It was that awful game. Well, it wasn't awful. It was hilarious with the monsters that sort of made stupid noises like.
Oh, that game you were playing?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember what that was called.
Blanked on what the name of it is. Deadly Premonition.
Yes, Deadly Premonition.
Why do I have to remember? We could have just gone out with me having forgotten it, rather than go through all that rigmarole and
just
then say the name of it.
Anyway. Anyway, look forward to duck racing in Shenmue 2.
Oh yeah, well there's going to be hopefully we'll be keeping you abreast of our Shenmue adventures. There'll be a lot more to say.
Gonna get people around to actually gamble, I think.
This is probably the only game
that's really
ever
what it was meant to be.
where I played darts. I've never played
yeah,
darts in real life. I've never played darts in any video game. I even stay away from football games, but in Shenmue 2, I actually played darts. Because if Ryo can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. You've got to live out all aspects of his life, and
Absolutely.
darts is one of them.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that was a good chat about Shenmue there, which came out on the Dreamcast back in the day.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to Shenmue 2. We've only just really started it.
Yeah, it
but
was early
I know
stage.
what happens in it. Pavel knows what happens in it. Ewan, it's all new to you, so we're looking forward to hearing more about that from you. So yeah, that's our video game section. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some tabletop games.
Hey!
Okay, we are back, and we've lost a Ewan.
But it's fine, because Pavel is still here.
Yeah, Pavel's still here, but Ewan had to rush off, or he's fallen in the back of the couch or something. He's just not here. So we'll continue without him.
I'm sure we can manage. I have a mic all for myself. It's brilliant.
Pavel can do the work of two men,
Totally.
like most Poles that come to this country. Right, let's start talking about some games. Let's first talk about the Arkham Horror card game, which recently came out. We hyped it up a little bit earlier on this year when we first heard it was coming out. I got a bit excited, and it came through the door.
I think the excitement got rewarded.
Yes, and you and I sat and tried to play through the first mission in it.
I'm gonna say we played through the mission.
Yes.
The fact that we've not been successful doesn't mean we've not played through it. And we've enjoyed ourselves very much as well.
So, the Arkham Horror card game. It's set in the Lovecraft universe, and it's quite nice, actually.
It's a co-op game. I think it's important to mention that. Nobody plays
Yes.
as a Cthulhu. Although I'm sure this would be... There are games like this out there,
I think there are, yeah.
But in this particular one, you're just... you're an explorer, and your destiny is to be devoured by the horrors. Which always happens in these games. So, if you've played some Mythos games, and there's plenty of Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horrors, Elder Signs, you name it,
Yeah.
all of them essentially there for you to lose your sanity, lose yourself in time and space, and get devoured. And this game sort of does it to you as well, but it's a little bit smaller scale, I feel, isn't it?
It is. It's dripping with theme, this game.
Oh, yes.
And then there's one thing I say, and it's usually... Because I'm one of those guys that generally, when you get flavour text on a card, I'm not that fussed about it. I might read some of them, but generally I'm more about the game. Whereas this Arkham Horror card game, there's flavour text that really makes the game for me. It really makes you feel like that you're moving towards something or running away from something, as is probably more likely.
Been a while since I've seen someone read flavor text with such enthusiasm and a role-playing thing in it. So, I was well impressed, I must say. Yes, I was well done. Good performance.
I feel like I'm being corrupted by you.
That's bound to happen. And that's actually what I wanted to mention. I think I've never had such a strong RPG vibe from a board/card game as I had from this one. It's pretty much a hybrid, and this is probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed it so much. But obviously the actual gameplay as such is also very well done.
It is
very well balanced. It's not terribly hard as co-op games sometimes tend to be, although it's still hard enough to challenge you, probably make you lose once or twice before you actually win. But you don't feel the utter sense of despair as you sometimes do in games of this particular type. You feel like you feel like you know what you're doing. You see the goal in front of you. You get surprised along the way a few times, but again, the thematic surprises rather than
Yeah.
you not grasping the rules or anything like this.
Well, let's talk about some of the mechanics in this game then, because
Yeah.
essentially what you get in the base game is just a bunch of cards, and there are 3 story quests, I believe, in the base game. And you can play this game as a campaign. So you essentially like a campaign, basically. You play through one mission. Depending on what happens in that might affect what's going to happen in the next mission. What you actually get is you get bunches of cards that are player cards, and you get bunches of cards that are locations, and you get cards that are monsters and those kind of things. Now, the player cards, the base game gives you recommended setup. So each player will have a deck for a character that they can pick. So I think the base game's got, is it 5 characters that you can choose from?
Yeah.
And the rulebook recommends a setup for each of those characters, as in what to put in their decks if you're going to play as these people.
But here is a question: even if you don't choose to go along these recommendations,
Yes.
are you still forced to take some of the cards, aren't you?
Yes, there are rules about what you can and can't
Yeah.
put into decks when you're building them yourself, but the option is there to build your own decks, and
Yeah.
I believe it, just like in Netrunner and stuff like that, that's going to become a...
And in games like this, deck building is actually half the fun and
Yeah.
half the definitely. It's the deck building that wins you the game.
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, in Netrunner, you spend more of your time deck building than actually playing, and it's just super fun, and I love it. And this game, we've not played with, or at least I'm not sure about you, but I've not obviously played with deck building as such so far. But the reason I asked is because you can see through your cards so many various details about your character's specialities, about your character's life, about your character's personality flows and potential derangements that nobody else would get, because why would they? But you will, because this is the life you've led so far. All those decks are nicely tailored to what the characters are. So as you play through it, your cards are essentially delivering a sort of RPG experience to you. If you're playing a tough Fed, I believe was the profession of, was it Roland, yes?
Yes.
You're going to have access to proper weaponry, because why not? But you also, because, you're a government official, you have law on your side, so obviously at some point you become justice, because why not? Let's burn evidence and things like this.
Well, yeah, but that's one of the more interesting things in this game. So, like you say, the cards that, like, for example, Roland had were all, like, you had a lot of weapons and stuff, and you had some allies and things like that. Like, you had a guard dog that you could put out that would, like, attack enemies for him and stuff like that. But you also have to put, and this is a requirement of the game, that you also have to put weakness cards in your deck, and if you ever draw one of those weakness cards, you have to play it straight away. And that gives a lot of flavour. And Roland had a thing where he was basically burning evidence, and he became so paranoid about it that he, like, if at the end of the game you hadn't managed to do the thing that would let you burn all the evidence, then you would lose experience points or something like that. There was basically a loss in terms of the campaign.
And that's a huge weakness compared to what I drew, because I had a character-specific weakness, which just had me, I think, drop some cards.
Yeah.
But if you're losing experience, that's consequences, for the campaign, and not just the scenario that you're playing. So wow, that's a big one.
It was quite a biggie. Thankfully, we decided not to continue this campaign, because we decided that was a learning curve.
It was mostly for me to learn how this game plays.
And I'll probably say I probably won't go Roland again the next time we play.
Well, the beauty of it is that every character will be different, and it's a story of on its own, learning what these characters are. I played as the urchin. The word urchin is just brilliant. I love it. But obviously she's now whatever adult woman, and whatever she does in life, I'm not exactly sure. But as you go through her deck, and obviously she's as any characters in this game, she's an explorer. She goes through this spooky mansion, manor, or let's say house, trying to figure out what's going on. And as you go through her deck, as you draw your cards and as you keep playing them, you you learn bit by bit what sort of person she is, and she was. And suddenly you realize that she's been through some tough shit in life, and she's got skills to prove it. And I didn't expect it from this character, but she was actually very well rounded. She was brilliant at finding things, because if you're a street kid, you probably just pickpocket stuff, and you find things where nobody else would. And she was good at that, but she was armed to teeth at some point. I was really impressed by that. But then at some point, which was also very thematic, and I think this was just when Roland got killed by the enemies, which we probably shouldn't spoil. My character I drew for her a weakness card, which was just, you feel abandoned because you're a street urchin, yeah? You never had parents, and now you've lost your fellow explorer, and suddenly you fall into despair. Madness and sanity, loss of whatever sanity, has always been the backbone of all the Lovecraft stories, and I think this game is doing it in a very interesting way.
Oh yeah. I mean, the emphasis has really been on that. It's been more about the actual horror of the whole situation rather than because it feels like Arkham Horror, for example, there was sanity and stuff in that, but Arkham Horror felt a lot like you were just moving around the board.
Yeah, and your sanity was just points that you can lose, like hit points or whatsoever. You did have actual derangements, but again, those were just debuffs. Obviously, cards in here are buffs and debuffs as well, but maybe because they personalize to actual characters, maybe because the sense of scale is more focused as such, and you actually know what you're doing. It's not as, I don't know, anonymous as in Arkham Horror, where you just, driving around the city, or sometimes whatever game you're playing, it's going to be bigger or smaller scale. But and here it's quite intimate. Every enemy, every secret, everything that happens to you, all those flavor texts that you've mentioned are quite close to your character. And another thing that I kept thinking about Arkham Horror, the card game, is how it shares certain similarities with Time Stories. I mean, you can replay this game easily, that's not a problem, but the way the game sort of uncovers in front of you, you get into one room, you sort of fulfill the conditions on the card that represents this room, and suddenly there's a few other rooms that open in front of you. I don't know, it felt to me a little bit like Time Stories, with the map and Time Stories and the specific cards.
I'm not entirely sure what you're getting at there. I mean, to me, it felt a bit like some of the other Fantasy Flight card games, in particular the Lord of the Rings one, in fact, because that had the same co-op thing going on.
Okay.
There was different locations that you had to play through and stuff like that. It feels kind of similar to that, except, I mean, I think that Arkham Horror, this card game, I think it's tough, but it's doable. There are much harder ones that you've talked about, Shadow and Crossfire, before.
We can try it one day and you'll know what I mean.
But then there's the Warhammer Quest one, which Fantasy Flight did, which is virtually impossible. And I don't know, I've got kind of mixed feelings about that one, in fact, because obviously Fantasy Flight and Games Workshop have broken off their contract, so there are going to be no Warhammer Quest expansions for the card game anyway. Which is kind of strange, because I kind of wanted to see them, but at the same time, the game is that hard that I was just like, well, I don't know if I'll ever get that far in the game that I would need an expansion for it. So
yeah.
But I feel like that this Arkham Horror game has really hit that spot where it's like, it's difficult enough, but not impossible.
Having compared it to, because Crossfire is the other co-op that I've played so many times, having won not a single time, I can say that it does seem easier, although it never feels easy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sorry. I should say, as you've mentioned and as we've both seen, the first round is just a tutorial.
Yeah.
It's easy to the point of being automatic.
A tutorial which starts easy and then escalates so quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
To the point of just being complete madness.
Yep.
Which is the point of the game, I suppose.
But because of a small scale, you're never fully lost in it, not aware, what you should be doing to win. And I think, we were close to winning. We lost, but we were close to winning. Getting that out, let's not spoil what the first mission is about, but there is a clear way to win it. You just have to try harder, maybe get other cards for the next time, or just find synergy with your character, because each of those characters is different and has their own types of gameplay. And I'm not sure if I understand correctly, but each of these characters, depending on how you deck build, can actually have two different sort of play styles, two different builds, I'm gonna say. So, and there is builds. You can go online and you can find different decks depending on whether you want to play Roland as a fighter or as an investigator of some sort, and such. So
there's it's a customizable game, definitely. Yeah. But I mean, it's one of the Fantasy Flight living card games, as they call it. So when you get expansions for it, it's not like Magic the Gathering. You don't get random cards or anything. There are set cards in each thing. So there are specific builds, and you don't need to worry about going out and spending an absolute fortune on booster decks, which is a good thing.
I think booster decks might soon enough be the past of card gaming, and I for one am definitely for living card games. They just hit the right spot for me.
I mean, there's a thing about getting booster decks, which is the excitement of not knowing what's inside them, but ultimately they always end in disappointment anyway, so...
Yeah,
that's why I quite quickly gave up on my Magic the Gathering career before it even started, and was just like, this is bullshit.
I've never really liked randomized decks to begin with.
Nah.
And this is coming from a total Mass Effect fanatic. I've done everything I could in Mass Effect games and love them. I've played Mass Effect multiplayer a lot, but the loot that you get in Mass Effect multiplayer is essentially your randomized crate of equipment. I've never particularly liked that part, but what can you do? This is what I had, so this is what I played along. We'll see how Mass Effect Andromeda does that. Anyway, sorry, back to Arkham Horror. There is expansion coming out in either December.
That's a few weeks from now.
Yeah, a few weeks from now. But 3 missions or 3 stories.
Three stories.
Three stories,
which are all linked.
Yes, already quite a lot to go through. The funny part is you don't actually have to succeed in the first mission to go. To start playing another one.
But that's one of the nice things about this game as well. But it's done a similar thing to what I said about Warhammer Quest, was Warhammer Quest did something similar to that. So if you didn't defeat a boss in Warhammer Quest in, say, the first mission, that boss would then get shuffled into the deck for the next mission, which means that boss could come out and you would have to fight him in the second mission, as well as the boss that's in the second mission. So you get the feeling like that they've done. I mean, like I say, we've only played the first story thing, so we're not entirely sure what's happening. But I think that's the route that they've gone with this. So basically, because when we finished that first mission, we did read the bit in the scenario booklet, which basically said you had to write certain things down. So, for example, that
there's a campaign log,
but basically your house is still standing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you get the feeling that that's going to come back and bite you on the arse at some point.
Yeah.
In a future story mission. And like I said, they did something like that with Warhammer Quest. I feel that they've moved that in there. I quite like that mechanic. It feels like you're actually moving through a story rather than just playing like
that's what a campaign
things.
Should be, yeah. Obviously, there cannot be too many factors influencing further stories, because at some point that would just grow too big. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it was just a couple of factors to sort of save between different stories. So I'm really looking forward to see how it affects further place. Yeah, there is actually already another story available. It's not part of the expansion. It's
something they've put online.
No, because you still need cards for that. So it's not just a downloadable something. It's an actual, it's the size of a booster pack, I would say, if we're talking about card games. but I can't remember. It's just one story. It's about, I think it's in New Orleans, something about...
This is that episode influence that is happening in video games and stuff now, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
I think this is the same thing, isn't it? You're just going to start having to pay for little episodes every now and again just
Possibly.
to play a little bit more.
Yep. DLCs.
DLC for card games.
Well, at least there's no day one patches in board games yet.
That's true, yeah. Just a rata.
Although there's a ratas, yeah, so there you go.
Right, well, yeah. The Arkham Horror card game, it's got so much theme, so much story. Like, I'm absolutely loving that side of it. And actually, mechanically, it's a pretty mechanically sound game as well, with some good twists, good turns, and lots of monsters to fight and stuff like that, if that's what you like to do.
Yeah, and again, because the stories are more, you actually get the sense of some sort of clarity about these stories. So if I don't want to spoil it too much, but if something's happening, it's not just going to be random monsters thrown at you from portals in the sky. The monsters themselves, even though it's Lovecraft mythos, they're still going to be. There's some consequence in it, and that's rare in Lovecraft games, so I actually quite enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
It's a cohesive story.
So yeah, that's the Arkham Horror card game by Fantasy Flight.
Yeah, give us more DLCs, we want them.
Okay, so let's move on. In fact, I'm going to quickly mention, before we let you talk about your RPG, Pawel, that I revisited Star Wars Rebellion with their friend Dave, which is an epic 2-player board game by Fantasy Flight again. And when me and you played it, Pawel, you were the Empire, and I was the Rebels, and I won quite easily, I have to say.
Well, yes, but I blame the accuracy of my stormtroopers.
That's all but easy to blame, man. But so I had to go playing the Empire the other day there, and I have realised that being the Empire it's a completely new set of problems, because the game is completely different depending on what side you play. And I was kind of realising the sort of issues that you must have been up against.
Yeah, but add to the fact that my gameplay style is usually very laid back. Let's just enjoy what's happening and maybe learn along. But, the turns are passing and I'm actually learning what I can do. And there's plenty of stuff to do in this game. You're never fully sort of deprived of ways to affect the gameplay.
Yeah. And it's another, like, Fantasy Flight are just so good at these games that are dripping with theme. Star Wars Rebellion is just so much.
Oh yeah.
It feels like the Star Wars original saga. It really feels like it. And you
invest yourself in it.
Yeah.
Which actually is probably a problem at some point, because everybody knows Star Wars so well and has emotional approach to it. I actually found myself, when I was playing Rebellion, focusing possibly a little less at strategic goals than I should have, and more at thematic goals, because it doesn't really matter whether I'm going to squash the rebel scum. What matters is just throwing everything I could at attempting to lure Obi-Wan to the dark side, because this is what you want to do, secretly. You do.
And you failed.
Well, yes, but this was just a dice roll, so I blame my stormtroopers for that. But I'm not sure whether this is... I'm sure this game is well balanced, because we've already played it a few times so far, so we cannot say for sure that whether Rebels always win.
You've played it once, I've played it twice now, and the Rebels won. I lost as the Empire. It was really close. I mean, I did. It was within a turn, basically. Yeah. I should have won, but I rolled badly on my dice.
Yeah.
Now, but I will say that this Star Wars Rebellion, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail about the games as such, but there is so much theme in that box. It is such a good game to play. There was you just have some really fun moments in it if you're a fan of the Star Wars universe, basically. Like, for example, when we were playing Sunday night, and Dave threw somebody. I'd captured one of his leaders. I can't remember who it was. Some minor player in the Star Wars saga. Just some crap leader. And Dave threw Princess Leia in to try and rescue him, and I just played the "It is your destiny" card and took Princess Leia
Because
as a prisoner instead.
again, because the franchise is so close to everybody's hearts, whatever happens on the board isn't just pawns moving and dice rolling.
Yes.
It's actual stories just
Yes.
getting mixed up and
That's
relived
it.
in your head.
It's like, oh god, what if this actually happened in the stars? It'd be a completely different film.
Yeah. So you get your cinematic experience from a board game.
Oh, yeah, you do.
It might not be RPG, but it's a complete different experience.
What was that comment all about?
No. What I mean is you don't. No.
It's almost
Sorry.
as if you're saying it might not be this high tier thing called RPGs.
No. What I meant is we were talking about Arkham Horror a moment ago, and there was a different sense of scale there. So that's why we kept referencing
Right.
RPGs.
Okay.
And Star Wars Rebellion. It feels sometimes like you're still sitting in whatever IMAX watching another rendition of.
IMAX getting money bags over here.
Yeah, of course. I'm man. And suddenly the story just unfolds in a different but equally, if not more exciting way. So it's a cinematic thing.
Oh yeah, and it's such a good game. But I'll just say, I just wanted to say that I kind of realised the problems you had as the Empire.
It's just you have to be.
I did a better job of it, though.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. But you have to be disciplined when you're playing Empire because your time is limited.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, there is some sort of symbolism in that. Yes, the time of all empires is limited. Whereas the rebels can just sneak around and win by simply waiting things through.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good game. Still totally recommend that as a 2-player epic experience. Absolutely brilliant. So Star Wars Rebellion Fantasy Flight.
Looking forward to playing it again.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Corey Konieczka.
So
That's the game that made it.
let's move on to some actual RPG.
Yeah. Yes. This is exciting, actually. I'm probably only allowed to do that because Euan's buggered off, but it works. It works. Thank you, Euan.
Okay, so tell us about this game, and I have no idea how to pronounce it properly.
Right, yes, we will do our best. Now, I should mention that this particular RPG, which I have recently acquired, has been made and produced and recently translated from Swedish. Swedish dish. So I'm gonna risk pronouncing the title as Symbaroum.
Okay, so that's Symbaroum.
Yes.
Symbaroum,
which is the name of the yes, please do that again.
Symbarumba, Symbar.
Thank you for that. Symbaroum, if you must know, is the name of an ancient civilization that has prospered and eventually died off 1,000 years ago. And there is plenty of ruins around now for the players to explore. Hooray!
Okay.
Sorry, I should probably say that the actual name of Symbaroum was the civilization. There was a city of Symbar at some point. Nowadays, deep in the forest. Right.
Simba. I'm sorry, I'm just turning this whole thing into the Lion King.
Why not? Why not? Right. So quickly about the setting, and I got to say that Swedes are releasing quite a lot of RPG games lately, which pleases me greatly. Thank you very much, Swedes. Very live market, very very good products. Symbaroum is. It feels like a smaller scope of a game. You're not presented with a whole world, but rather with, let's say, one country and one huge forest to explore, with quite a lot of references to whatever Dark Forest was in The Hobbit, or whatever you call it. Dark Forest,
like
was
Mirkwood.
it? The Mirkwood, thank you very much. Yes, that one, with the spiders and everything. Yeah? Yes. So, similar sense of scale, yes? It's not Lord of the Rings with huge armies battling and stuff like this. This particular world, and it is set in the book, this is just a bit of the world that you get to play in. So, if we're talking about genres, Symbaroum, yes, as a low down to earth, low fantasy, yeah. A bit grim as well, which is quite popular nowadays, and it works pretty well in
People
this.
like grim
in
dark
this book.
these days.
Yeah, grim dark. You get a couple of races to play as humans. Actually, humans, ogres, goblins, and changelings, which are essentially creatures left behind for children that elves have stolen and taken into the woods.
That sounds nice.
Yes, indeed. The first thing that occurred to me, and I still can't fully shake it, is that Symbaroum core book, and so far the only real proper book translated into English, is thin and doesn't really have a lot in it. There's obviously mechanics that allow you to play the game. I can't really say much about mechanics because I normally don't pay much attention.
I was going to say, you're not really a mechanics man.
No, I do roll my dice when I game master, but they're my own rolls, just to add randomized elements to what I know may or may not happen depending on difficulty of whatever activity and the skills and attributes of a character. So at some point you don't really need mechanics. You just need mechanics that allow you to fully illustrate a player character and for you to know the player character. What I mean is the actual setting information, all the lore that you as a player or a game master need. Obviously it's there, and it's enough to create an interesting world where you pretty much have human settlers running away from war that devastated their world or their whatever continent. So they arrive at a small piece of land, they settle it, they defeat barbarians that used to live there, and everything's fine and dandy, but the piece of land is just at the border of this huge forest with a lot of ancient ruins in it and a lot of history and a lot of dark and a lot of secrets, which is pretty much just the player's playground if you have it. But one thing that quickly becomes apparent to you as you go through this game is that it's just rigged to send you to this forest of Davokar, I believe it's called. You play an actual explorer, an actual treasure seeker. At least you're told what you're to do, which is what quite a lot of RPG games don't really tell you. RPG books, RPG settings tend to create worlds for you, sandboxes, if you will, so that you create whatever character you'd like to make in it.
So that's quite interesting. So they've not just given you a sandbox to play with.
Yeah, exactly. This is not a sandbox game.
They're kind of saying, here's what this game's about.
See,
so go
compare
and
it
do
to
this.
Shadowrun, yes. If you've got Cyberpunk, for example, plenty of Cyberpunk games around, you can probably end up making a lot of different types of characters.
Yeah.
Whereas in Shadowrun, which is Cyberpunk setting, obviously with magic or whatever fantasy creatures added to the mixture, but still a Cyberpunk setting, but also with your clear focus on breaking in and extracting stuff. If you play a Shadowrunner, that's already a very narrow speciality or whatever job. So similarly in Symbaroum, you're not just random dude you've decided to make, but you're actually told by the game, you'll be exploring this forest, you'll be exploring these ruins. Most fantasy RPGs in this way or another suggest that you don't just sit around in the capital city and scheme, but at least you're given the ability to do it if you like, yeah? In a Symbaroum, obviously you could if you like, but the game is about venturing out and learning the dark secrets of the forest. Now, the secrets of the forest are essentially for the game master to pretty much make up, because, as I said, there isn't a lot of information there, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, I'm quite used to picking up RPGs for for the lore within, just to get to know all the, I don't know, werewolf tribes and werewolf the apocalypse. Yes, and Symbaroum, you have amazing art, which is probably the standard actually in the RPG market nowadays. You get a new RPG book, they're gonna be pretty, so that's cool, especially when you kickstart your franchises. And Symbaroum started probably originally with a Kickstarter, and definitely the translation was kickstarted, so a lot of fans to do it well. That art is lovely, it's got its own distinctive style. Again, this is not heroic fantasy. This is low fantasy with all these people's sort of living in misery and fear, and quite easy to lose your life in this world. You're not just bashing through armies of enemies, but you're not really told much about the world. You're shown the world on these artworks in the book, and I'm still digesting this approach to what an RPG book should be. Because fair enough, an RPG game is an engine. Yes, you're given your mechanics in order to play a game, and obviously any RPG, and this one is doing this as well, and it's doing it well, will give you some boundaries to your world, will give you some basics to what this particular setting is. But in this one, there isn't that many details. What they've done instead is told you, you know what, you decide what it should be. Which is a good thing and a bad thing. If your GM is creative, fair enough, they will just decide how exactly should an ogre look like. If they're not, then they might just ask themselves, why have I bought this, game if I can just as well decide what races should live in my own fantasy world that I've cooked up in my head.
I mean, that feels a bit weird. It feels almost like they've gone, okay, you're a treasure hunter, you're in this sort of forest thing, off you go, and then nothing.
Yeah, so instead what they've done, instead of giving you a full huge atlas of the world, which is what I would have liked, to be fair.
Well, that's what you do like so powerful.
They've given you this basic, fairly thin core book with all the mechanics that you need and enough flavor to get you interested in the world. And then they just started printing the campaigns, plenty of scenarios as such. So instead of saying you need comprehensive knowledge about various factions, various cultures, various peoples, this is not a sandbox, and they do say it. What we'll give you instead is adventures that you can play through straight away.
So that sounds much more up my street in terms of like RPG things. I just like when it comes to RPG stuff, because like I said, we've dabbled in Pathfinder and stuff. I'm much more enjoying just making the stuff up as I go along, rather than sitting trying to like digest an entire like nation's history
and to many people this is a big step, and possibly a little bit too nerdy a step to take. If you're picking up Warhammer Fantasy, a role-playing game, you suddenly realize it's not just one core book you have to go through. There's so much material you have to go through to actually do it the way it should be done. If you want to do it with experienced players or whatever on conventions and stuff like this, Symbaroum is not doing this at all. It's just giving you adventure straight away. Normally, when RPGs are released, you get your main book, you get whatever various source books before you start getting campaigns. And here you get adventures straight away. And it sort of seems to be working. The adventures are fairly interesting. And I don't know, I find myself sort of being on a hunting expedition of its own, or exploring expedition, trying to learn what this game or what the setting actually is. I went through the whole Reddit forum devoted to it, just to learn what elves should really look like, because all I know is how they look on the artworks.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, there is something to this approach. I'm not sure yet whether I'm fully convinced by it, but I can see the appeal in it.
That actually is really interesting me, actually. What you've described there sounds quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because some of the other stuff that you talk about, I'm just like, nah. Because you have a totally different approach to RPGs than I do. Because you like to immerse yourself in the world and the details and, like you say, like the werewolf tribes and stuff like that. I couldn't be bothered with that. I'll be honest with you. Like I'm not going to sit and read about all these different tribes and how they feel about each other and what their history. I'm just not going to do that because I'm much more about let's just do what's happening in the moment. So somebody's saying to me, here's a sort of world to. Or that little setting that you've got, here's this forest and here's some campaign thing, here's something to push you in a direction. That sounds much more my thing, mate.
Yeah, but the way you're describing it now sounds lightweight, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, but it does sound lightweight. I think it does. I think you're right. But it feels... I don't know. It does feel like there's something there. It's almost like they're letting you decide how lightweight it's going to be, rather than, just saying that this is a lightweight RPG or this is a heavy RPG.
And I think I'm sort of just about to reach my point. I'm reaching a point. There is a point to it. It feels lightweight.
Really?
Yes. I've just realised that. It feels lightweight if you think about it this way. And you can certainly play it this way. It's easy to pick up and it's easy to have fun in it. But... You're gonna have full-fledged RPG franchises with 40 source books out there, and if you're passionate about it, you're gonna go through them. Yes, which is what I tend to do. Yeah, so you're gonna pick up your Fading Suns, whatever 3rd edition, and you go through source books about just. You're gonna get a proper full-sized source book just about one particular alien race. And there's going to be everything described in it. The way they dress, the way they, cut their skin ritually and things like this. And you know what? I love this stuff. I absolutely love it. But you also end up, if you're a game master, and I've just realized it when I was looking at Symbaroum and going through that book. As a game master, you end up knowing everything and then just having fun actually running the games in the world that you've pretty much, fully grasped. Yeah. And in Symbaroum, for some reason, for a game master, is still fun. As a road of discovery as you go through it, even though you're supposed to be running.
And I think
it keeps surprising you. It keeps tempting you to either look further for more information, if you like, or just go through those lovely, gorgeous artworks, which are sort of even blurry, if you know what I mean, because they have their own atmosphere, their own style.
It's making me think it almost sounds like if we were to take the Arkham Horror card game, for example, and read all the cards.
Yeah.
Alright, before we started playing the game.
Exactly.
That's pretty much what you're describing there. It's like, then you would know everything about the world.
Which is what the game master usually sort of feels like they should,
But what I love about these kind of games is the mystery, is the what the hell's round the corner next. Yeah. And that's kind of almost what you're describing to me.
And this is what the game master sort of feels in Symbaroum as well, which is nice. This is fresh to me. So I must say I'm really enjoying it so far.
Have you actually played games in this world?
No, I've picked this book up maybe a week ago. I just started reading it, talking with the creator to ask some questions, because this is another bit of internet that I truly adore nowadays. If I obsess about something, I can always just send an email to them and they reply. You know what? That's brilliant. So yeah, I've not run it just yet, but I soon will. So just to wrap it up, I should probably mention who's actually released it. The company, Swedish. Thank you. It's called Järnringen, if I pronounce it correctly.
Don't ask me.
And it was the translation was kickstarted quite some time ago. There was recently another Kickstarter for an expansion titled Thistlehold, which is going to probably hit the market in the next month or so. Really good sort of fresh resetting. It has a small scale to it, but sometimes that's exactly what you need. I must say I'm quite charmed by it, and I'm looking forward to explore it.
It does sound pretty good. Okay, so...
My god, I talked about RPGs.
Yes, you did.
I actually have another one to talk about. May I?
Not just now.
Damn you!
Maybe next episode, Pavel. Maybe next episode.
See, that always happens to me.
You've got to babysit you sometimes.
No. The other one is Swedish as well.
That makes no difference to me whatsoever. Next episode, we'll let you talk about
Okay, we'll see.
Coriolis.
There you go.
Okay, so that's episode 32. We will give you our internet. So we have a website, which is www.firstplayertoken.com. Our email address, if you want to send us comments, questions, anything at all, criticism, etc. Tell Pavel that there are other RPGs that come from places that aren't Sweden.
Yes, France is really good with them as well nowadays.
That's firstplayertoken@gmail.com. We are on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. Now that's @1stplayertoken.
Or as Euan would say, once player token.
Pavel's filling in the role of Euan there.
I don't have a beard.
All our episodes are on SoundCloud, but you can also subscribe to us on iTunes using your podcasting device. We have a YouTube channel. And my Twitch username, if you want to watch me doing some streams, which I'm doing a lot more of these days, my Twitch username is Unnecessary Chris. And we are part of the Podnose Network, which is a collection of podcasts collected by a collector.
I'm going to say this was really professionally done.
All put on a website, which is www.podnose.com. Some really good podcasts on there, actually. So check that out.
Yeah, we're on it. So
we're on it as well, but I think we're in the war team. So, thanks for listening. We will be back in a couple of weeks' time with episode 33.
And lots of RPGs in it.
And possibly one RPG. Thanks for listening.
Coriolis.
Simba rumba, 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 simba rumba.